Here.
You're playing Aryna next. I think you've only played her once before, back in 2018. How much are you looking forward to that match?
I mean, for me, it's really exciting. I've watched her, I don't want to say grow over the years, because I think she's only a little bit younger than me, and I feel like an old person.
Naomi Osaka into a Wimbledon forefront.
The top seed had bulldozed her way through the draw, demolishing everything in her path. She had won every Grand Slam tiebreak for 3 years straight, an unprecedented 21 in a row. She was on the verge of a 4th consecutive Wimbledon semifinal. And then, the Japanese superstar who had been written off by so many walked onto center court and did the unthinkable. Aryna Sabalenka had entered the 4th round as the overwhelming favorite. The world No.1 had beaten Naomi Osaka 3 times already in 2026. In Indian Wells, Madrid, and at the French Open just weeks earlier. She was chasing her first Wimbledon title. The door to the final had swung wide open after defending champion Iga Swiatek and second seed Aryna Sabalenka had both been eliminated. Everything was perfectly aligned. But Naomi Osaka had other plans. In 1 hour and 28 minutes, the 28-year-old Japanese superstar produced the performance of her career on grass. She outserved, outhit, and outthought the world #1 on center court. She ended Sabalenka's astonishing streak of 21 consecutive Grand Slam tiebreak wins. She snapped a 14-tournament streak of Sabalenka, reaching at least the quarterfinals of majors. And when the final point landed, Osaka held her racket to her head in disbelief, while Sabalenka blasted a ball out of the stadium in frustration and declared she wanted to get drunk and forget about tennis. Was this the greatest performance of Naomi Osaka's career, or the moment the women's draw was blown wide open for good? Aryna Sabalenka was supposed to be unstoppable. The world #1 had arrived at Wimbledon with a singular purpose: to claim her first title at the All England Club. She had made deep runs into this tournament 3 times in her career, including a semi-final appearance the previous year. She had been the most consistent player at the majors for years, reaching at least the quarterfinals of 14 consecutive Grand Slams. A streak that stretched back to the 2022 French Open. And she was on a tier that defied belief. Sabalenka had won 21 consecutive tiebreaks at Grand Slams, the longest streak by any man or woman since the Titan era began. An all-time record. An unbreakable run of dominance in the sport's most pressure-packed moments. The previous record had been held by Novak Djokovic, who had won 19 straight from 2005 to 2007. Sabalenka had surpassed even that. She hadn't lost a straight sets match at a major in 122 matches. Her aura was untouchable. The path to glory had opened even wider over the weekend. Defending champion Iga Swiatek had been stunned by Alex Ayala in the 3rd round. Second seed Aryna Sabalenka had also been eliminated. The door for Sabalenka's first Wimbledon title had swung wide open. The bottom half of the draw, once crowded with threats, had suddenly cleared. Sabalenka had cruised into the 4th round, yet to drop a set her reward was a meeting with Naomi Osaka, a player she had beaten 3 times already in 2026 in Indian Wells, in Madrid. And just weeks ago at the French Open. Osaka's only win against Sabalenka had come in their very first encounter, back at the US Open in 2018. When both players were just emerging onto the scene. Since then, almost 8 years had passed without them facing each other at a major. The 14th seed was 0-13 against top 10 players on non-hard courts in her career. She had never won a match on center court at Wimbledon before that Sunday. The odds were stacked against her. The history was against her. The world #1 was waiting. But Naomi Osaka had never been one to read the odds. Naomi Osaka had been written off by many. The 28-year-old Japanese superstar had won 4 Grand Slam titles, all on hard courts, before taking breaks from the tour to manage her mental health in 2021, and for maternity leave that resulted in her missing all of 2023. She had returned to the tour in 2024, following the birth of her daughter Shai. But the dominance that had once defined her career seemed like a distant memory. She had achieved a career-high ranking of world #1, and possessed 20 career singles titles. Yet grass had been her kryptonite. Grass had always been her biggest challenge. She had never reached the 2nd week at Wimbledon before this year. Her record on the surface was unremarkable. Her relationship with the lawns of SW19 had never been comfortable. 2 years ago, playing at Wimbledon for the first time since 2019, Osaka was bounced in the second round by teenager Emma Navarro and admitted she didn't feel fully confident in myself. Even at the height of her powers back in 2019, she was ousted in the tournament's first round. Just a year ago, after an error-filled third-round defeat against Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova, she told reporters she had nothing positive to say about myself. But something had changed in 2026. Under the guidance of her coach, Tomasz Wiktorowski, Osaka had undergone a transformation on grass. She had worked on specific training drills that simulated the scoring patterns and rally structures required to succeed on the surface. She had developed a game plan tailored to the unique challenges of Wimbledon. She even credited her mother's Japanese cooking, which had been a constant presence in London, as a secret weapon. Entering the fourth-round clash with Sabalenka, Osaka had already made her first grass court final of her career at the Bad Homburg Open in her tune-up to Wimbledon. She had compiled an impressive 8-1 record on grass for the season. She was playing the best grass court tennis of her career, and she was determined to break the cycle of defeat against Sabalenka. Sabalenka had beaten Osaka in all three of their previous matches in 2026, in Indian Wells, Madrid, and at the French Open just a month earlier. In Paris, Sabalenka had pushed Osaka around to the tune of 12 aces and 39 winners. At the All England Club, the slugger was about to be outslugged. "I lost to her like 3 times in a row, so that really sucked," Osaka admitted after the match. "So I wanted to turn it over." She came into the match with a clear strategy. She knew she couldn't outmuscle Sabalenka, no one could. But she could outthink her, she could outmaneuver her, she could stay calm when the Belarusian grew frustrated. "We are both big ball strikers. It's not like I'm going to start running around the court trying to draw an error from her. I can only focus on my strengths. I just tried to serve really well, because it's grass. I also tried to get the upper hand in the rallies first." Her coach had given her one crucial piece of advice. Don't look at the scoreboard. Focus on one point at a time, one game at a time. Stay present, stay calm, stay in the moment. The strategy would prove to be the difference between victory and defeat. And when the sun rose over SW19 on Sunday, July 5, the tennis world was about to witness something extraordinary. A resurgent Naomi Osaka was about to play the finest grass court match of her career. And the world number 1 was about to be stunned. The center court crowd had come expecting fireworks. 2 of the hardest hitters in tennis, with 8 Grand Slam titles between them, locked in a battle for a place in the quarterfinals. What they got was something even more extraordinary. From the very first point, Osaka came out firing. She had lost to Sabalenka 3 times in 2026 already. The memories of those defeats, the frustration of being out-hit, out-muscled, outplayed, were still fresh. But this time, something was different. This time, she was ready. The 14th seed broke Sabalenka's serve early with a stunning backhand winner, taking a 2-1 lead. The world number 1 looked rattled. Her powerful serve misfired. Her ground strokes sailed long. Her frustration was palpable. Sabalenka, who had been so dominant in the opening rounds, suddenly couldn't find her rhythm. Her first serve percentage dipped. Her winners were few. Her unforced errors multiplied. The first set was over in just 32 minutes. Osaka dominated from the baseline, her flat ground strokes cutting through the warm air faster than usual. She broke twice and cruised to a 6-2 victory. She gave Sabalenka no time to breathe. No opportunity to settle, no chance to impose her game. Sabalenka was left screaming in frustration on the court. "I feel my level was really low today," she would later admit. The world number 1 had been beaten at her own game, power for power, aggression for aggression. But the world number 1 refused to surrender. The second set was a different contest entirely, a high-octane battle that lived up to the blockbuster billing. Both players held serve. Both players refused to give an inch. The tension was unbearable. Every point was a war. Every rally was a test of wills. Sabalenka tried everything to fire herself up, even banging her racket against her head in frustration. But Osaka remained serene. She never flinched. She stayed calm when the pressure was at its highest. Her coach had told her not to look at the scoreboard. She had followed that advice religiously. 1 point at a time, 1 game at a time. The set headed to a tiebreak, a scenario that had historically favored Sabalenka. She had won 21 consecutive tiebreaks at Grand Slams, the longest streak in Open-era history, an all-time record, an unbreakable run of dominance in the sport's most pressure-packed moments. She hadn't lost a major tiebreak since the 2023 French Open. This was her territory. This was where champions are made. But Osaka was relentless. She raced to a 6-1 lead in the tiebreak, her returns finding the corners with surgical precision. Sabalenka saved one match point with a blistering ace. But on the next point, Osaka delivered the knockout blow. The final score, 6-2, 7-6, 7-2. 1 hour and 28 minutes of tennis that would be remembered for generations. Osaka held her racket to her head in disbelief. She had done the unthinkable. She had beaten the world #1 on center court. She had ended Sabalenka's streak of 21 unbeaten tiebreaks. She had snapped Sabalenka's run of 14 straight Grand Slam quarterfinal appearances. She had just delivered the finest grass court performance of her career. "It's been a long time since I had so much fun on the court," she said. "I mean, it's been a long time since I've had so much fun on the court. To do it here, it really means a lot." Sabalenka, meanwhile, took her anger out on a ball, blasting it high out of center court. The world #1 had been humbled, and the women's draw had been blown wide open. The press conference room at the All England Club had never seen anything quite like it. Aryna Sabalenka walked in minutes after walking off court, still sweating from the defeat. The world No.1, the most dominant player in women's tennis, had just been dismantled on center court. And she wasn't about to pretend otherwise. "Now I want to go and get drunk and forget about tennis," she declared. The room erupted in nervous laughter, but Sabalenka wasn't joking. She was brutally honest about her performance. "I feel my level was really low today," she admitted. She was playing at her best. "I did everything I could with what I had today, and she deserved to win." The statistics told a story that Sabalenka's words confirmed. She had put just 69% of her first serves in play, compared to Osaka's 87%. She had been unable to handle the pace of Osaka's flat ground strokes, which cut through the warm air faster than usual. She had been outserved, outhit, and outthought. But the defeat carried implications that extended far beyond one match. Sabalenka's streak of 14 straight Grand Slam appearances, reaching at least the quarterfinals, had come to an end. It was her earliest exit at a major since the 2022 French Open. And it was the first time she had exited a Grand Slam in straight sets in 122 matches. Her record of 21 consecutive tiebreak wins at majors, the longest streak by any man or woman in the Open era, had been shattered by a player who had never beaten a top 10 opponent on grass before. Osaka, by contrast, had achieved something remarkable. She had improved her record on grass to 8-1 for the season. She had become just the third Japanese woman in the Open era to reach the quarterfinals of Wimbledon, joining Kimiko Date and Ai Sugiyama. And she had done it by beating the world No.1 on center court. "I think it was a really fun match," Osaka said. "I'm really grateful for this. Even if I lost, I would still think it was a great match." The victory was Osaka's first over a No.1 player since beating Ash Barty in Beijing in 2019. It was her first win on center court in 6 appearances, and it was a statement that the Japanese superstar was back. But perhaps the most telling moment came from Sabalenka's brutal honesty. She had been the overwhelming favorite. She had been the one with everything to lose, and she had lost. "Now I want to go and get drunk and forget about tennis," she repeated. The world #1 had been humbled, and the women's draw had been blown wide open. The center court crowd had dispersed. The press conference had ended, but the implications of Naomi Osaka's stunning victory over Aryna Sabalenka were only just beginning to sink in. The women's draw at Wimbledon had been turned upside down. The top 3 seeds were all gone. Defending champion Iga Swiatek had fallen to Alex Ayala in the 3rd round. Second seed Elena Rybakina had been eliminated by Elise Mertens, and now the world #1 had been dispatched by a resurgent Naomi Osaka. For the 9th consecutive year, dating back to 2017, Wimbledon would crown a first-time champion. The last 4 previous champions that started the tournament, Serena Williams, Elena Rybakina, Iga Swiatek, and Barbora Krejcikova, had all been eliminated. The trophy was up for grabs. Osaka's path to the final was now wide open. She would face 10th seed Karolina Muchova in the quarterfinals, a rematch of the Bad Homburg final just a week earlier, where Osaka had been forced to retire due to injury. The head-to-head between Osaka and Muchova was tied at 3-3. The Czech had been in superb form, having just eliminated 2024 Wimbledon champion Barbora Krejcikova. But Osaka was playing with a freedom she hadn't felt in years. "It's been a long time since I had so much fun on the court," she said. Her coach had told her not to look at the scoreboard. She had stayed present, calm, and focused. The result had been the best grass court performance of her career. For Sabalenka, the defeat was a bitter pill to swallow. She had been the overwhelming favorite. She had been on the verge of her first Wimbledon title, and she had fallen short. But the world No.1 ranking was secure. Aryna Sabalenka's third-round exit meant Sabalenka would remain at the top regardless. I did everything I could with what I had today, and she deserved to win, Sabalenka said. The defeat had exposed a vulnerability in Sabalenka's game that other players would now seek to exploit, but for Osaka, it was a moment of validation. A reminder that she could still compete with the best in the world. A signal that the Japanese superstar was back. The women's draw had been blown wide open, and Naomi Osaka was standing at the center of it all. The top seed had bulldozed her way through the draw, demolishing everything in her path. She had won every Grand Slam tiebreak for 3 years straight, an unprecedented 21 in a row. She was on the verge of a fourth consecutive Wimbledon semifinal. And then, the Japanese superstar, who had been written off by so many, walked onto center court and did the unthinkable. Aryna Sabalenka had entered the fourth round as the overwhelming favorite. The world #1 had beaten Naomi Osaka 3 times already in 2026, in Indian Wells, Madrid, and at the French Open just weeks earlier. She was chasing her first Wimbledon title. The door to the final had swung wide open after defending champion Iga Swiatek and second seed Aryna Sabalenka had both been eliminated. Everything was perfectly aligned. But Naomi Osaka had other plans. In 1 hour and 28 minutes, the 28-year-old Japanese superstar produced the performance of her career on grass. She outserved, outhit, and outthought the world #1 on center court. She ended Sabalenka's astonishing streak of 21 consecutive Grand Slam tiebreak wins. She snapped a 14-tournament streak of Sabalenka reaching at least the quarterfinals of majors. She improved her grass court record to 8-1 for the season. It's been a long time since I had so much fun on the court, Osaka said. I lost to her like 3 times in a row, so that really sucked. So I wanted to turn it over. Sabalenka, meanwhile, was left to reflect on a missed opportunity. Now I want to go and get drunk and forget about tennis, she declared. I feel my level was really low today, she admitted. She was playing at her best. I did everything I could with what I had today, and she deserved to win. The women's draw had been blown wide open. For the 9th consecutive year, Wimbledon would crown a first-time champion. The trophy was up for grabs. And Naomi Osaka, the 4-time Grand Slam champion who had been written off by so many, was standing at the center of it all. Was this the greatest performance of Naomi Osaka's career, or the moment the women's draw was blown wide open for good?
Tell us